Dear panels, in my country, many of the politicians already gain master or even PhD in politics, laws, or even sociology. Yet the real world issues or concerns is not addressed properly, but instead these politicians are just sitting in the parliamentary room, scrolling through TikToks and Instagrams, watching trends without doing other kinds of concrete work. This motion gives the state the power to decide who counts as qualified before the people ever get a say, and if but the reality hits hard. Even if the government wants to realize the standardized testing, these kind of politicians would still qualified, overly qualified, but yet no concrete work will still be done, and therefore the term politicians will be useless. That's why we're so proud to oppose. But firstly, let us go to the 2 points of my rebuttal to the government side speech. So first on their first argument and second on their second argument, I will elaborate this one by one. Firstly, on their first argument, they said that the government side provide mechanisms that assure better quality and preserving the foundation of democracy, which preserving social contract better, which yeah, as we know, social contract is the foundation of democracy, right? But the counter is this is casuistic. That to frame democracy as a system where only failing figures are ruling. We assert that the essence of the social contract is that the people give up certain freedoms to be governed, but they never give up their right to choose who governs them. But they never give the rights to vote who will be the next leader. That's not a privilege the state that gives back, but it is a right that the people retain. So voters shouldn't be children that needs protection to their own choices or any other kinds of options. Rather, when democracy is real, citizens are the ones who accountable and responsible for any kinds of voting or any kind of choices they are made, even when the leader is bad. But even if this is still efficient in regarding like the healthy participation in democratic government, for example, as the government has proposed, well, it will not be as efficient to ensure the dream goal of the government, which is to ensure social stability, for example. Because furthermore, this would create a dangerous precedent of what is going to come the next day in politics, which is would be ideology biased and might create further harmful, which I will further elaborate in my arguments. But also, secondly, on their second argument, they said that the problem of political nihilism in this world means we will require the competency test for all the political candidates. So this is assumptive, as if there was only one way, which is through the standardized testing itself, the panels, to address this kind of issue. We argue that people don't disengage, or political nihilism happens, not because leaders are unqualified, but because the voices of people, the rights of people are unheard, unaddressed, and the concerns are unsolved. Like what I have stated in my opening statement. So the solution then is better inclusion instead of better exams or better testing for these political candidates. Testing them only confirms people's worst fears, which is democracy belongs to elites. But even if this is would educate enough to erase political nihilisms, so what? There's no guarantee political testing will able to guarantee the better inclusion and the preserving mechanistically preserve the social contract as the government has so much proposed. So, moving on to our clarification of the motion, 3 points of clarification in the panels. A, how do we define political competency? B, how do we debate, why do we debate on this motion? But also C, 3 points of mechanism to frame how opposition would work on this debate. Firstly, how do we define political competency? We from the opposition side argue that the right framing of competency is not just about intellectual knowledge on the politics, government, or laws, but rather emphasize more in leadership, communication, and advocacy of real issues and concerns faced by the society. But also then, secondly, why do we debate on this motion? Because A, we live in a democratic world that emphasizes equal political participation, which is can be both healthy or unhealthy. But also B, this debate is not about to ban or abolish political competency tests, but whether we should require the procedure or not to ensure people's rights still be heard and everyone can participate to be a candidate or a political candidate. So by this, moving on to the third point of my clarification, which is how does the opposition work would look like? Firstly, A, we will require all political candidates to have been active in campaigning or advocating at least in their own society. But also B, there will be a non-required competency test on political knowledge and case studies on real-world issues for considerable candidates that needed stronger weighing metrics or maybe not that active or doesn't have much opportunities, for example, in rural areas to have a campaign or active issues application. So yeah, with these mechanizations and by the principle of fairness, efficiencies, and returning of the logical fallacy that the government side of the house might has, we argue we have 2 points of arguments on why we are so proud to oppose this motion. Firstly, on fairness, and second, on logical fallacy that the government has. Let us elaborate this one by one. So, firstly, on fairness, well, conceptualize this, dear panels. Democracy isn't a system that ensures your leader will be the perfect kind of leader in the world. No, it rather consists of a system that says everyone can participate equally on politics, no matter what is your background, no matter what is your level, no matter what is your status. Why is it important? Because then A, democracy means anyone can lead, whether you have a PhD or not in politics, law, sociology, etc. But also B, our democratic system is already acting exclusive despite being democratic. And by having standardized testing, this will just create more elitism and technocracy in the side inside the government itself. So the loss on government side is A, the test itself is already political, dear panels. No one is neutral because all tests are already political. So the claims of neutral or objective tests are unrealistic, and therefore people cannot really 100% realize that the result is the reliable leaders who will advocate for issues or concerning issues that is addressing society. But also then, risk of tests being weaponized to block dissenters or even marginalized minorities. So it could risk gatekeeping political participation rather than ensuring competency. But also B, the loss on government side is this will disproportionately hurt marginalized candidates, for example, first generation politicians, working class activities, or rural figures which might struggle with test formats, for example. In real history example, in the US, there was a literacy test to ensure an equal or the qualification of having engagement in political, for example, but yet it is used to actually disseminate black people from the governments of white people, for example. So the manifestation on our side of the house, if we are not requiring such kind of testing, is we create more accessible and diverse pool of candidates, and citizens will feel ownership over political outcomes. What does this create? Comparatively, our status quo may have incompetent leaders, but voters can reject them later. Some bad leaders may win, but voters can remove them through democratic process, such as protests, media, etc. While in the opposition government side of the house, good candidates with unconventional profiles and centralizes political power in elected bodies. Some great leaders never have the chance to run, and then participation becomes conditional because then people can only uh, vote or participate if they are actually able to qualify for the test, which again, the test is made by people who are not elected by the people and therefore is not democratic at all. So this motion asks, as a closing statement, this motion asks, who should we give power as democratic people to deliberately choose who to vote? Governments give the power to state, we give the power democratically to you. I rest upon my case, so proud to oppose. Thank you.